You too. We're good. Phil, how are you? Good to have you.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, really busy and very healthy, thankfully.
Good to hear it. Now, we've been chatting just before we started recording. Really, the big news is what's happening with the blood testing. And I know you started this a few years ago, but I know now you've really ramped up your clinic and you're doing sort of 40 or 50 bloods a month now because, the demand, people want to take the guesswork really out of their health. So kind of what have you finding generally, Phil, at the moment?
Well, the biggest thing from a female perspective, because I know that's your audience firstly, is that I haven't found any females yet that have had optimum sex hormone balance.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen, it's a similar pattern really. It's a chronic progesterone deficiency, not necessarily estrogen dominance. I haven't even seen a woman, if I'm honest with you, with exceptionally high estrogen. But what they have got, the estrogen is high in regard to the progesterone levels, so they still class as estrogen dominant, but I'm not seeing the estrogen levels off the chart. 9.9 to 10, I'm also seeing exceptionally low testosterone levels, in females. Also very, very high sex hormone binding globulin.
Okay.
And that then ties up especially the testosterone. It has 10 times more affinity for testosterone than what it does for estrogen. And estrogen is a fat storing hormone and testosterone is a muscle building, fat burning hormone. Mm-hmm. So what I'm seeing is that females, from a hormonal perspective, have an absolute inability to gain lean muscle tissue and lose body fat, okay? And no amount of training can outrun this. This is something that has to be addressed really by nutrition, lifestyle, and bioidentical hormones to get the levels back. And then from a thyroid perspective, I'm seeing 8 out of 10 females with thyroid disorders, and not chronic. I've seen I've done hundreds lately the last 7-8 months, and a lot of women with Hashimoto's who have been misdiagnosed by the doctor. The doctor have said their thyroid is fine, and he's right in terms of they've got normal thyroid stimulating hormone, they've got normal free T3, free T4, blah, blah, blah. So on a thyroid panel, they will look like nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the autoimmune, sort of the antibodies for the thyroid, we're seeing ladies that are absolutely through the roof. And then what they have got is a disorder which has not been picked up. So they've got all the symptoms, So those are the big findings from. The other big finding as well is definitely lots of problems with liver. Okay, I'm seeing lots of females with fatty liver disease, and that is caused through a high carbohydrate diet in the past life. Yeah. And what's really interesting as well with the females who are not in tune to diet, those, because we look at 7 markers for blood fats, okay? We look at blood cholesterol, we look at HDL, very low density liver proteins, etc. Now, why I look at that is also from a dietary perspective. I mean, we had somebody this morning, like if they were in a GP surgery, he would have put them straight on statins. There's no doubt, male and female. But what's really interesting here is the biggest trigger for high cholesterol is insulin. Right. Insulin actually triggers an enzyme which produces cholesterol in the liver. The point being is that the person's put on a statin drug then on a low-fat, high-carb diet, and it's the low-fat, high-carb diet which has caused the elevated cholesterol in the first place. So, I mean, I look at the cholesterol levels really also from what the diet they're on, and then we look at things. Another good marker that we look at here as well is we look at creatinine levels, okay? And I'm seeing a lot of females who are training really hard, but they've got very low creatinine, and what that means is that they have very low muscle mass, even though they're training. Like I had a lady this morning who's training 4 times a week and she's doing strongman training, but it's having no effect on her body fat composition, So, you've got to match the training then to what you're seeing in front of you, So with this particular person, she had very high insulin levels, very high hemoglobin A1C. She had high estrogen in comparison to progesterone. She was very estrogen dominant. And the point being, then she's got low creatinine levels. And she's somebody that is not only a non-responder, but she's doing the wrong training as well. She needs to do a lot more hypertrophy training, where at the moment her training is just the reps are too low, and the training, even though it's intense, it's not intense enough to put any muscle on her. So she still looks the same, 12 months on sort of thing,
Got it. So when
Yeah.
you do get somebody's panel back like this, Phil, generally females, what's the next point of action? What do you suggest when somebody is faced with this? I mean, it can be quite horrific. You think you're fit and healthy, you lead quite a healthy lifestyle, and then you suddenly get this panel of bloods that's like, whoa, this is it's hard hitting. What's the next step, Phil, then?
Well, what I like about the blood panel, if I'm honest with you, in my previous life, you use a shotgun approach. You just think, you throw as much as you can at something and you hope something's going to hit the target, okay? With the blood chemistry analysis where we look at 77 blood markers, you use a sniper approach. You can hit the target with one bullet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need all these different steps. That's the big thing, because the other thing that I'm seeing as well, the first thing, I never scaremonger. I mean, we see what we see on the panel. I mean, at the moment, I'm doing a gentleman who's a lot younger than us with stage 4 melanoma, who's in a real battle, so, that's life or death. Most people, thankfully, that we are dealing with is really, some hormonal issues or body fat composition changes, And, because what I'm seeing a lot with females as well, I should add, and especially also females who are trying to conceive, is also another marker, which is a very problematic marker called homocysteine.
Right.
Now, why this is so relevant for females who are either trying to conceive, or even if they're not trying to conceive, if you've got high homocysteine levels, which I'm seeing in 8 out of 10 people, male or female, you're much more likely to have a heart attack, you're much more likely to have a stroke, you're much more likely to have Alzheimer's, autism, ADHD, okay, anger issues, etc. It's a real problem. But over 50 to 55% of people have this particular gene mutation, which is very easy to test for. Now, why that's so interesting is that if you had that, I've got that gene, so, and I can test, if you've got it really quite quickly, but if you've got that gene, for example, and you are trying to get pregnant, okay, and you are taking, as the medical profession will tell you, take folic acid to prevent neural 2 defects and, learning difficulties, and Down syndrome as well is what they take folic for. Well, ironically, if you have got this defect, the folic acid is going to actually attenuate, multiply that problem significantly. So it actually encourages the neural 2 defects and encourages Down syndrome, and birth defects, etc. So, but your average GP will have no idea about this concept, okay? He thinks he's doing well as she does, and I'm not knocking them because they don't know. 99% of doctors simply wouldn't know this. And that's why you have to use a form called methylated tetrahydrofolate, which is we develop in products at the moment, which have got this in, and that's for everyone. Now, what's really interesting about this marker, not only from like a health perspective and pregnancy, but from our perspective as, I don't want to get pregnant, quite frankly, but the reason why this is so important is that, now this is really interesting, because this homocysteine I'm speaking about, okay, if we break it down, it can go into 2 pathways which are real essential for health. One is to detoxify the liver, okay, and the other one is to make brain neurotransmitters where we feel much happier, okay? So it's really important. We're supposed to have the homocysteine there, and then we are supposed to have specific types of B vitamins in a methylated form, which then allows this cycle to keep continuing, where you're producing very healthy mood, plenty of neurotransmitters, and the detoxification pathways are in place and they work and fine. So it's brilliant. If it's working well, you feel fantastic. Now, as I said, for the vast majority of us, it's not working. So as we get older, we become more foggy brain. We become, less ability to retain attention. We become more agitated. We're more likely then, you don't hear of many people having heart attacks or strokes in their 20s. Why? Because our hormone levels are at their highest levels. We're at our peak. Homocysteine levels are low, but as we get older, things unfortunately go south. Now, but it's so easy. So once you've got this marker, then I say we can test, because why this marker will be elevated is because you have a B12 deficiency and a folate deficiency, okay? Now, if you have got, but we're also seeing this marker being very high in people who have got normal levels of B12 and normal levels of folate. Now, if they have got that, which I'm seeing quite a bit of, they've got a real problem with this methylation. Now, they will need much higher amounts of methylated B12 and methylated folate. Now, in 99% of supplements on the market, they're all synthetic, and they attenuate the problem. They attenuate it, so they accelerate it, and it makes people sicker and sicker. And that's why what I love about this program is that, for example, the two people that I did this morning, they also had exceptionally high, one had high iron levels and one had low iron levels. So one will do well on a multi with an iron, and one will become exceptionally sick. So, and then on the other, on another flip of the coin as well, with the immune system, especially the thyroid, with the females that have got Hashimoto's, where they've got antibodies which are attacking the thyroid gland, well, it's well known in the literature that if you give those women iodine, they'll become exceptionally sick. It'll accelerate the problem. Now, if they got straight hypothyroidism, they need the iodine to kickstart the thyroid as well. So the point I'm making is, look, supplements can be as detrimental as medication. You've got to know why you're taking things and are you taking the right thing. We had one chap about 4 days ago that was taking 600 milligrams of iron a day, okay, because he felt tired and fatigued. His iron levels are so high in his blood, right? What people don't realize that this is a massive accelerator for myocardial infarction, okay, heart attack, and it's a massive accelerator for cancer as well. And this was a guy in his 50s who already had some other markers which were very, very pointing towards heart attack, heart disease. So, as I said, it's as bad as medication if you don't know what you're taking. So that's why I like about this, the program. It's accuracy,
Okay. Phil, that brings us on to food. Can you literally eat your way out of this when you've got your markers? Is it a question of really working out which foods are causing inflammation, which foods are problematic, and really drilling down your diet? And can you eat yourself out of it?
In a lot of the cases, you'll need help at first to kickstart it. For example, if you're a female, which as I'm saying, I haven't seen a female yet with optimum levels of progesterone.
Yeah.
They've been so low that they need to take bioidentical progesterone, it's hard to put a time limit on because it can take months to get your progesterone back up to a normal level, and the key is to get the levels checked every 6 months until you're on, until you know that you're in the optimal zone. And then I would always suggest if you're 40, get your bloods done every 12, 18 months because you need to make sure that everything you're taking is improving you and not, obviously sort of inhibiting you. Obviously food is the key, food and, obviously clean drinking water as well. But for example, if you've got a thyroid problem, sometimes it'll warrant medication, or sometimes we can see on the blood panel, actually, do you know what, this just needs a bit of help here. If we supplement for about 90 days, we can kickstart this thyroid gland, and really then it's on its ways. The key to all this really is, it's nourishment alongside detoxification, because most people's problem, especially in their 30s and 40s, is that we are swimming in toxins. And the toxins are making the cells sick, and they're also interfering with the way hormones work. So, as I keep saying, you've heard me lecture, we're not living in an age where we are genetically designed for. We live in an age where we can't handle the amount of toxicity that is in our environment. And that's why it doesn't matter. You can't out-train this. What you must do is become very good at detoxification. And going back to the home assistant I mentioned, once you get those pathways working, you become much more effective at clearing, especially the heavy metals out of the body, like mercury, lead, cadmium, and especially iron, as I said. And the only way, unfortunately, you can get rid of iron if you got in excess, as I said, which I'm seeing 9 out of 10 people with excess ferritin levels, okay, is that you give blood. It's the only way you can get iron out of the body, if you give blood on a regular basis until you get those levels down to a normal level. And it's one of the biggest markers that they can look at to predict how long you're going to live till. Is how much ferritin is in the, is in the bloods. So it's a big key marker.
That's a big chemo. And what would that mean, going to give blood watchers for 12 months, a year? How long does this kind of thing take to level off?
Well, again, it depends on the levels, but I'm seeing astronomically high levels. There is a condition known as hemochromatosis, which is quite rare, to be honest. So I thought it was more common than what it was, but it's not, because I was wondering why I was seeing so many people with high ferritin levels. So I've done a lot of research on that. And one of the biggest reasons why is ferritin is also stored in the liver. And if there's inflammation in the liver then the cells break and the ferritin leaches out into the blood, and then you pick it up on the blood test. So a lot of it, and that's driven through a high insulin diet, and going back onto the insulin diet, what the bloods can do as well. It can tell you whether you need to be on a ketogenic diet, or it can tell you whether you can cope with carbs. We look at a number of markers, about 7 or 8 markers, which says, maybe for the next 90 days, like I did with my 2 clients this morning, you have to go ketogenic.
Yeah.
You are moving so close to type 2 diabetes, where, you must remember, if insulin levels are up there and estrogen levels are up there, then so is fat storage. These are the hormones really. And we can also tell on the panel, even though we don't measure directly cortisol on the panel, only because the fact you can't really measure cortisol in the blood, because as soon as you stick the needle in someone, the cortisol levels go high. But we look at another marker called DHEA, which is the most abundant steroid in the human body, and it's the antagonist of cortisol. Now, if we see that level exceptionally low, but what's really interesting as well, when you see progesterone levels really low, that cortisol is really high, because cortisol is stealing material from progesterone to make the cortisol. So we have a very good idea roughly what your, if you got cortisol high levels, so the point being, if cortisol levels are high, estrogen levels are high, insulin levels are high, then you've got your progesterone levels, which are low, and your testosterone levels are low. There's no way. You can't out-train that, and that's why you need then help. And as I said, it could be 12 months on, from the research I've read anyway, females over 40, 45 should be on progesterone, pretty much all the way through, because it's the hormone, that and testosterone levels are the ones that drop so quickly. Estrogen does drop, but only by 35%. Progesterone levels will drop by 75%, but testosterone is the first one that drops. And females must understand that testosterone is as crucial for them as what it is for males. Whether they want fat loss, lean muscle gain, and also very healthy heart, because the biggest killer for females after the menopause is heart disease. And females after the menopause produce much less testosterone, and testosterone is the most important hormone for the heart. And women who've had an hysterectomy are 3 times more likely to have a heart attack or heart disease. So they should get their testosterone levels checked, and they should go on testosterone therapy as well.
So that's really interesting, really interesting. A lot of people will be resonating with everything you've said there. But I mean, you've mentioned the ketogenic diet, and this is something that suddenly is popping up everywhere. And I know you've been talking about it for a long, long time, many years. But, we hear lots of different stories about ketogenic diet. Is it appropriate for women? Is it appropriate for women post-menopausal, when their hormone levels are, possibly depleted? Is it safe? Is it effective? So give your take on what you think about ketogenic diet in females.
Well, females or males, the bottom line is this, I wrote a book on the ketogenic diet. So, I spent 2 years full-time researching it. The biggest thing on the ketogenic diet is the diet that we are designed to eat, as a human being, full stop. That's what our genes are designed to eat. Now, you will have cases where some people do better on carbohydrates than others. There's no doubt about that. As I said, when we look at the bloods, I have 2 diets that I recommend once we looked at the bloods. And that is, you need to go ketogenic diet, because the blood insulin levels are so high, your blood glucose levels, hemoglobin A1C, C-peptide, your cholesterol levels, and all that's being triggered because there's too much carbohydrate and too much sugar in the diet, so you need to go ketogenic diet. From a hormonal perspective, the biggest feeder for our sex hormones is fats. Okay, so the ketogenic diet really gets our sex hormones back in balance as well. You've got to understand this. The biggest aging hormone And the hormone which is going to send you to the grave the quickest is one word, really. It's simple. It's insulin.
Mm-hmm.
The higher your insulin levels are, right, the quicker you die, the quicker you age, the quicker you disease. What causes high insulin levels? Well, really, from a nutritional perspective, there are other things. Protein will cause insulin levels to increase as well, but not to the level that sugar and carbohydrate will cause it to increase. So really, I mean, you know, it's you know, you don't necessarily have to be ketogenic. What I'm personally on is a very low carbohydrate diet. You know, I eat very, very small amounts of it, you know, but I was keto for 2 years, you know, but really I also think as well, the more research I do, you know, like with the summer coming up, etc. now, as I say, we would have access to fruits and vegetables, etc., and some starchy foods. But remember, we did eat those foods to get fat as well, you know, but those foods also do give us protection against the sun. Okay, so we get all the antioxidants there, you know, and that's why, you know, it's good sometimes to eat those foods. But going forward, what I do now with my clinically obese clients, I put them on a ketogenic diet for 90 days, and it's 100% strict, okay? And then depending on their blood tests then and their insulin levels, if they still, well, I mean, after 90 days, trust me, your insulin levels are going to be in the basement, okay? So it's at that time for your audience to understand when the body will start to use its own stored fat for energy.
Yeah.
Now, if you are carrying a bit of weight, you can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out with keto. You're either fucking in or you're out. And the problem is, like, you know, if you had a breakfast which contains some carbs in the morning, but you were keto for the rest of the day, you're still going to use, your body will still use the carbs from the breakfast. It will not touch its stored body fat, okay? And it can take a long time for the body to actually start touching. And that's why so many people fail to lose weight. There's no reason for their body to tap into their stored fat. And as I've said, from an evolutionary perspective, for us to use fat as a fuel, you have to make sure there's a real need for it, because the body will not touch its fat stores unless it have to, you know, because it's a survival mechanism. And whenever there's sugar or carbs available, or there's glycogen in the muscles or the liver, it'll use a little bit of fat, but I'm talking a tiny amount, okay? But now when you're ketogenic, you've got no choice. You're burning fat even when you're watching TV.
Yeah.
You know, but what people don't realize is how hard it is to become ketogenic.
Very hard.
Yeah? You know, you drink 2-3 cups of coffee a day on a ketogenic diet, it'll kick you straight out. If you stress your gills with ketogenic diet, it'll kick you out. You know, so that's why I encourage people to get out of a Ketogenic where you blow into it like a breathalyzer, and they measure it. You know, it took me 31 days to become ketogenic. You know, so, you know, people think they're ketogenic, but they're not. It's very, very difficult, okay? That's why they're not getting results.
Get it.
You
Going
know?
back to the blood panel, interesting, you know, whenever I do talks around the country, often to women 45 plus, the general population of women of that age are on antidepressants, HRT, painkillers, sleeping tablets, and it's you know, it's just the norm. Most people, if you are talking to a group of women, you know, 30 women, there's going to be 25 of them that are on at least 3 or 4 medications. So how does that, if a lady comes to you on those meds, how much does that affect her blood panels, her results, Phil? You know what is it having a massive effect?
Well, I think firstly, the biggest causes of, you know, the mood disorders, the depression, the going on to the antidepressants, I can tell, you know, it's a combination, right, of a hormonal imbalance. You know, what females don't realize, and what the medical profession don't realize as well, not just females, males, you know, is that, you know, the effect that hormones have on mood, you know, and if you've got low thyroid and you've got estrogen problems and you've got progesterone problems, which is what I see every single day, okay?
Yeah.
You're going to have a mood disorder. Now, to throw another spanner into the work as well, if you've also got high homocysteine levels, as I said, which I see in 8 to 9 out of 10 people, you're also going to have chronically high mood disorders, okay? Now, the problem is the medical profession can't figure this out, because they, you know, the biggest complaint I've had from females is that they've been to their doctor multiple times and they still feel like shit. Now, if that doctor was getting paid for results, right, he'd be on the fucking streets.
If it was
That's
us,
the
yeah,
bottom line.
no one had come to us.
Exactly. They don't solve the problem. They haven't got the expertise either to solve the problem. That's the problem. And then, if I feel down, I mean, it's a prescription for every ill. Okay. So the bottom line is, once you optimize hormones and you optimize the methylation cycle, you optimize detoxification, then you're on the right diet that's suited for you, because the keto doesn't suit everyone.
Yeah.
As I said, it'll depend on, my future wife, she can eat carbs and have a six pack.
She's super lean now, isn't she?
Yeah, but she's the lucky one, but there's not many of them. Most of us, I mean, I eat carbs, I look like a fucking Swiss ball. So, I can't touch carbs really. I mean, I can't, so, but from a mood perspective and HRT is deadly. Okay. I can say that categorically, what the ladies must really go on. And the reason why the doctors don't put them on bioidentical hormones, for your audience to understand, because they can't patent bioidentical hormones.
Yeah.
So the pharmaceutical companies don't make any money out of it. But you do research on synthetic HRT, right? Even though, you've got synthetic estrogen in there, you've got synthetic progesterone in there, it causes a huge problem in so many females. It's definitely an accelerator for cancer, heart disease, stroke. The list is endless. You can't mimic nature. You cannot mimic these hormones. So that's why I'm such a huge fan of bioidentical hormones. I mean, who wouldn't be? It's common sense, So, and that's where you females, they're hitting their head against the wall, because unfortunately the people that they go into, they don't know the answers either. That's all they know is what drug to prescribe. If you're 51 years of age, you've just gone through the menopause, they put you on HRT, okay? They don't really run any blood panels, but the problem is, as I said, if they did, they will put you on the synthetic versions and they will not touch the bioidentical versions. And it's just insane, really.
Yeah, it is, really is. So Phil, on a personal level, you've trained world-class sports teams all over the world. So now, is this what you're doing day to day? It's the blood panels. Is this what makes up your world these days, Phil?
Well, I think from the blood panels, it allows me to develop much better supplements, because, as you know, I've got my own supplement range. And thankfully now what we're seeing is that, for example, everything's being changed over to methylated forms of B vitamins, etc. We've got more products in production. We can see on the blood panels what's working and what's not. We've got some, clients now who are coming back for their fourth bloods, and we can really see, as I say, what's working, what's not. So really what I'm doing is, I'm working with, whether it's cancer patients through to, world-class athletes, to menopausal females, and then it just keeps accelerating the research, and, I'm very short, I start my MSc in endocrinology. So this really is, it's just combining, all this work with in the trench stuff as well, the research with seeing how people are feeling. You don't get it right with everyone, but we've had about a 95% success rate,
That's
and that's pretty good, yeah.
That is phenomenal. Have you got any more books in the pipeline, or did the last one kill you?
Well, they've all killed me, to be honest with you. I think, what I'm going to do is turn, the Science of Fat Loss book, the Ketogenic book, and my Ultimate Strength and Conditioning book into an online certification course.
Great idea.
Yeah, we're going to do that. So it'll be about 12, 15 lessons on that, So, you can either do it in 12, 15 months or 12, 15 weeks, I don't think I'll do a book at the moment because it takes so much time. I think I'll do another book maybe in 3 to 5 years time. Once I finish my MSc, I've done thousands more bloods, and you really starting to see this pattern. But, as I said, the bottom line is you've got to acquire health.
Yeah.
And to acquire health, you've got to see where you are, and the bloods cost £699. But I can tell you now, if you know anything about blood testing, I could charge £2,000 for that panel. It's 77 tests. I mean, it's insane. If you try to go on Genova Labs and price everyone up, your jaw will hit the floor.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's all well and fine having the test done. It's then getting somebody to interpretate the results and then apply the necessary, application of what products or what, or what medications that is required, So that's why it's so priceless, All you spend, or I did, and what most people do, years and years trying to find a solution,
Yeah.
but you're just doing it with a blindfold on.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Phil, where can people find out more about the blood testing, your books, everything that you write, your blog? Where are you?
Okay, so if they go into Phil Richards Performance, and they'll see everything. We're having a brand new website very shortly as well. So there'll be, at the moment, there's no blogs up. Everything's on that side is down, but all my videos will be up, blogs will be up. Lots of free ketogenic recipes and everything else I speak about, and all the supplements and workshops as well. I'm going to run a workshop in September.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to run it on digestion, hormones, and methylation.
Okay.
And the end of July, I'm going to run a 2-day workshop on strength and conditioning for fat loss and performance. Because the other thing I'm seeing is that people are really messing up in the gym.
Yeah.
They really don't know what to do to either improve their performance. I know all your clients are for fat loss, and they don't know how actually the intensity of the training is required also for fat loss to take place as well. Okay. So there's a couple of courses coming up as well.
And you're always on Facebook. People can see what you're writing about on Facebook, can't they? They can comment. You're pretty much daily there, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, but that'll be sort of as soon as I start my MSc and all that. That's not going to happen, But yeah, I've got staff behind the scenes and all that, So it's I do like to keep update, but as you know, Facebook, man, it's a drainer.
It surely is. All right, Phil, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Catch you again.